The appointments are lined up.
You waiting for somebody in there?
Got an appointment.
And it's not about what you want to hear, but what you need to hear.
It's not personal. It's strictly business. It's time you and me had a private talk, Winger. Step into my office.
It's Step Into My Office with Michael Lombardi. Mr. Lombardi, we'll see you now.
Oh, it is that time of the week. Time to hear what you need to hear. And the first person going into the office is Zac Taylor, head coach of the Cincinnati Bengals.
You know, Zach, I think one of the things you've done a great job with is getting your team to play its best football at the end of the season. But I think it's probably time we turn that needle a little bit because of the competition in the AFC, and losing 2 North games is setting us back. But more than just that, I think we got to rectify Burrow's calf, but we got to fix our offense. Like, our offense is broken right now. And I don't know if Jonah Williams is good enough to be the right tackle. I think that's going to be a problem for you moving forward because everybody's going to put their best rusher on him. Everybody has taken Chase out of the game. He averages 7 yards a catch in his 10 catches. So we're going to have to figure something out. Maybe we should change formations. Maybe we should substitute some personnel groups because it's easy to get comfortable in 11 personnel with Joe Burrow. But maybe we need to give him a helping hand, to give him some other way to where we could make some plays without having to constantly drop back in 11 personnel and try to throw the ball over the lot. Because it doesn't seem like we want to give Mixon the ball very much. So I think, to me, you got an extra day to prepare before you get ready for the Rams, and you know Raheem Morris and you work for Sean McVay. I think this is more about the Bengals than it is about the Rams. I think it's about who are we and what do we need to do. Teams have spent a lot of time studying you. And yes, you've started out 0-2 before and you've come back. But this is a hard place now. I mean, there's teams that, because you're going to lose the tiebreaker in a lot of these, and the schedule doesn't get any easier. So I would focus this week really on you and fixing your offensive problems, because we're going to have to move Chase around. We're going to have to do different things, because if they take him out of the game, we have no explosiveness. We just don't. If they take Higgins away, take the deep ball out of Cincinnati, dare them to run the ball, how are we scoring points? I think you got to answer that.
It's time to self-scout over there in Cincinnati. This next person heading into the office, this is the one that is near and dear to my heart. Justin Fields, my man. It's time to step into Michael Lombardi's office.
Well, Justin, I think you can't blame the offensive coordinator for the play call on the interception when, in fact, the ball left your hands. And he's only calling interceptions. He's only calling screens. I think he leads the league in screen calls because he's trying to give you completed passes that will gain yards and help you out. But when you have an opportunity to throw the ball in cuts and you have an opportunity to lead the offense, you got to take advantage of it. And what you have to do, and stop listening to all this nonsense MVP talk, is find a way to protect the football. You had 2 more fumbles yesterday. You're not able to pull the pin on things when they're wide open. And you just have to find a way to get some kind of rhythm. And maybe it isn't that it's the bad call. Maybe it's not the bad offense. Maybe it's just you have to work harder at your craft, and you've got to recognize things quicker and move off and find that secondary receiver and then put an accurate throw on him. Because right now your accuracy is not good enough. It's below 60%, and you have probably the most easiest throws of anybody in the National Football League. You throw more screens, you throw more flats, you throw more flares because they're trying to give you completions, and yet we're under 60%. So this is really, after 29 games and 26 starts, people have an idea who you are. Now it's on you. Either you make the changes necessary in your game, or this time next year you won't be a starting quarterback in the NFL.
That's the harsh words that need to be said there. The next person also needs to hear some harsh words, and this is Brandon Staley, head coach of the Los Angeles Chargers.
Well, I think the first conversation we have to have, Brandon, is I know I've been wrong before, but I think a lot of this would help you if you've been wrong, if you admit you're wrong. Because going back to the Denver game when you left Mike Williams on the field, you didn't think that was a problem. You don't think your team's having any problems winning close games. And yet if you would examine your 2-minute drill, which to me it's quietly no one talks about, if you would examine what you did in that 2-minute drill, you never really gave your team a chance to win. Your usage of timeouts. Now, I know you take great pride in having the most comprehensive analytical department in the history of football. You have guys up in the press box telling you when to call timeout, when to not. Maybe you want to evaluate the evaluator. Because where I was sitting on an airplane, I was calling timeout for you and you weren't listening. Now, I know I'm not in the league and you are, but I was calling timeout. And I promise you, had I been your analytical advisor, we would have had more than 3 plays after 51 seconds. I promise you that. And you know what we would also had? We probably wouldn't have had any timeouts left when we kicked the extra field goal for the tie. But we would at least have chances in the end zone to win the goddamn game. You didn't even give us a chance to win the game. They didn't even give you a chance to win the game. So maybe you ought to think about who you're listening to. Maybe you ought to stop and think about they're wrong and you should watch more NFL games and understand what you're doing. Because just because you say, I listen to the analytical people, doesn't absolve you from criticism. It doesn't absolve you at all. You know, Pro Football Focus will like you because they think you're the best coach in the league. But other than that, no one else will. So at some point, you're going to have to come to the realization that you can possibly make mistakes. We all have made them. But you yet to learn from them. And you keep hiding behind the analytical card. I got nothing against analytics. I got a lot against losing games, and that's what you've been doing.
First step to fixing a problem is admitting that a problem exists. Staley has still yet to do that in terms of Chargers closing out.
I don't think he'll call me
games.
back, Femi.
Well, you gave him some advice. Hopefully he'll take it to heart. Let's continue.
You don't want to hear advice. He's a genius with an eraser. Like, Armo used to say to me all the time, hey, kid, I'm not second guessing, I'm first guessing. You know, I was sitting there. I was watching this unfold before my very eyes. I couldn't believe it. And I know I listened to his interview when he had Peter King in there and he had the joystick in there with him when they were breaking down film together. It was a revolutionary. I mean, it was like I thought Sid Gilman and Paul Brown were in the room. You know, it was like, oh, my God. You know, it's like, okay, like I know he talked about we have an analytical community up in the press box that tells me, like, if that's what if they're telling you what to do and you walked off that field with one extra timeout and really didn't give yourself a chance to throw the ball in the end zone to win the game, I promise you this, if you would have been on Tennessee's side with the 3 and they would have scored that touchdown, would have gone up by 4. Everybody who had Tennessee thought they were losing that game. Mm-hmm. Everybody did. You got a quarterback you just paid over $50 million to. You got 2 all-pro receivers. You know?
Well, what else do you need? Well, you need a guy that knows what he's doing at the head coach spot. Let's continue with the coaching theme here. Sean Payton, head coach of the Denver Broncos. His first year in Denver has gone off to a rocky start. What does he need to hear?
Well, I think one of the things every coach in the league, and you know this better than I do, Sean, is after 2 weeks you kind of know what your strengths and weaknesses of your team are. And it looks to me like whatever that whole rhetoric about how good the Denver Broncos are on defense, that the offense, that they were just a quarterback away from being a great team, that's a lie. That's a lie. Because your defense isn't very good. When you play 2 home games, you didn't get the ball back with 5 minutes to go in the game against the Raiders. And you really couldn't stop the Commanders. They scored 21 points in the second half against you and took control of the game. I mean, the score is misleading. It's the Hail Mary pass makes it look like it was closer. It really wasn't. They had control of the game and you couldn't stop them. So I think you're going to have to find a way to do it. But your bigger issue is you got a big issue in the quarterback because everybody's going to say he had great numbers, but there's 3 or 4 plays he didn't make for you that if you're paying a guy $50 million a year, he's got to make it. If Joshua Dobbs doesn't make those plays, you're not mad. You're not mad, right? Mm-hmm. If Wilson makes them, you're angry because you're paying him $50 million to win the game. Yeah. You're paying him that. You know, if Justin Fields doesn't make it, you're saying, okay, we gave a guy a chance, we're moving on. If Mac Jones doesn't make him, and both those guys don't make them either, I'm just saying, we move on. There's not an investment, but you got an investment in this guy. It's hard for you to say to move on, but at the end of the day, he's not helping you win. He's helping you accumulate stats, but you're not winning games. Now, your defense takes responsibility, but he throws a completed pass to Judy. That game changes. You're probably going to go in at halftime 28-11, 28-14. Instead,
Person.
You go into halftime 21-14.
Final coach who needs to hear something is Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings.
Last one?
Yeah.
Look, Kevin, I think, the one thing you got to figure out is how to run the ball. Madison's got to play better for you. And you're going to have to keep your defense off the field, and you are going to have to find a way to balance the game out a little bit because with Cook, you had an easy out. He could run screens. He could do a lot of things. Madison isn't as good as Cook, and that's pretty clear. You're going to have to figure out how to get somebody involved in that passing game from the backfield.
And maybe find that horseshoe that he had running around with him all of last season. in those
Derek
one-score
Stevens
games.
won't even let him in that building. Even if he wanted to go to Saginaw and buy a pastrami sandwich, he wouldn't be allowed in.
11-0 in one-score games. Now they're 0-2 in one-score games. You're still not getting it, Kevin. We still need to see you regress a little bit more.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.